Welcome to the Ramayana, Stories of Dharm and Devotion. I'm Sandeep, your storyteller, guiding you through the eternal journey of Valmiki's Ramayana. Our narrative draws deeply from Valmiki's original text and is enriched with stories from other Indian traditions, offering you a complete and immersive experience of this eternal tale. Share this podcast with your loved ones and let the timeless lessons of the Ramayana inspire your journey. In our previous episode, the war moved toward its final truth. We saw Raavan stand alone, with no warriors left to fight for him. We witnessed Ram prepare not just with weapons, but with dharm, patience, and truth. The gods stepped in, and the sacred Aditya Hridaya filled Ram with renewed strength. Yet dharm stood firm, and Ram chose the path of devotion over haste. We saw him begin the worship of Goddess Durga in an untimely season, and Akal Bodhon, turning the battlefield into a place of prayer. Day after day, he worshipped with full faith. Hanuman crossed great distances to bring the rare blue lotus flowers. And finally, we reached a moment of ultimate surrender, when one flower went missing, and Ram stood ready to offer his own eye to complete his devotion. In today's episode, we will see how that devotion changes the fate of the war. We will witness Goddess Durga appear and reveal the deeper truth behind Ravan's destiny. We will see how divine will moves through action, as Hanuman creates the moment for the goddess to leave Ravan. From there, the war will reach its final and fiercest battle. We will witness Ram and Raavan clash like two forces of the universe, where even the gods watch in suspense. We will see the mystery of Ravan's endless strength unfold, and the secret that alone can end him. We will witness the final strike that brings down the king of Lanka. But this is not just the end of a battle. We will also see compassion in victory. We will hear the final words of Ravan, filled with wisdom and regret. We will witness grief in Lanka, as Mandodari mourns and truth reveals itself even in loss. And finally, we will see how Ram honors a fallen enemy with dignity, showing that dharm stands not just in war, but in how one treats even those who stood against them. We will walk through the final moments of this great war, not as a battle, but as a lesson for all time. We will see how even the gods hesitate, unsure if Ravan has truly fallen. We will witness Ram's deep respect for a fallen enemy and the dignity given to him in death. We will feel the sorrow of Mandodari and the burden carried by Vibhishan. We will see how dharm stands steady, not just in victory, but in how one treats even those who stood against them. And finally, we will witness the last rites of Ravan, as a king, a warrior, and a complex soul whose life leaves behind lessons that echo far beyond the battlefield. Join me now, as devotion leads to destiny, as battle meets truth, and as the fall of Ravan reveals lessons that will live forever. Ram held the arrow close to his eye. He did not hesitate. His devotion was complete. At that very moment, a divine light spread across the sky, and Goddess Durga appeared before him. She looked at Ram with deep grace and said, "Ram, I am pleased with you. Your devotion has reached its highest form. Few in this world can offer what you are ready to offer." Ram bowed and said, "Mother, I seek your help. I feel tired and troubled. Rescuing Sita now feels far away." The goddess listened quietly and then said, "You are not just a warrior. You are the lord of the universe. Think back, and you will remember that Ravan and Kumbhakarna were once Jai and Vijay, your own gatekeepers. They were cursed to take birth in this world. You gave them a boon that in each birth, they would be freed by your hands. Kumbhakarna has already fallen. Now it is time for Ravan." She continued, "This worship was necessary. By performing my worship in autumn, you have begun a new path. From now on, people will worship me in both spring and autumn. I will now leave Ravan, but I need a reason to do so." Ram turned to Vibhishan and asked, "What should we do?" Vibhishan looked at Hanuman. Hanuman understood immediately. Hanuman took the form of a tiny fly and flew to Ravan's camp. There, the goddess Durga in the form of Chandi was being recited with full devotion. Hanuman waited for the right moment. Then he took his true form and erased a few shlokas from the sacred text. The recitation became incomplete. The purity broke. At once, the power ended. Goddess Durga rose and left Raavan. Raavan cried out, "Mother, do not leave me." But she did not stop. She went straight to Kailash, leaving Raavan alone. Raavan still held on to hope. He thought, Ram does not know all this. He may leave without Sita. But in Ram's camp, Vibhishan stepped forward and said, "Ram, there is something you must know." When Raavan prayed to God Brahma, he asked for immortality. God Brahma refused, but he gave him a boon. His heads and limbs will grow back. No ordinary weapon can kill him. Only one weapon can end his life. It is hidden in Lanka and guarded by Mandodari. Ram looked serious and said, "Who can bring this weapon?" Hanuman stepped forward and said, "I will bring it." Taking everyone's blessings, Hanuman went toward Lanka. He took the form of an old Brahman and entered Mandodari's palace. Mandodari saw the Brahman and felt a sense of reverence. She thought, "A Brahman coming to my house is an auspicious sign. This will surely bring good fortune to me and my family." With that feeling, she welcomed him warmly and said, "Please sit. Let me serve you." The Brahman replied, "I will not sit. I am an astrologer. I have come to bless you and Raavan. No one can defeat Raavan because of a hidden power." Mandodari grew curious and said, "What do you mean?" The Brahman said, "I know about the weapon that protects him. I wish to bless it. If you do not wish, I will leave." Mandodari, eager to ensure blessings for her family, quickly said, "Even Vibhishan does not know where it is hidden." Then, without thinking, she pointed toward a pillar and said, "It is hidden there." In that very moment, Hanuman understood everything. He returned to his true form, struck the pillar, and took the weapon. When Ram saw Hanuman, he stepped forward and embraced him. The path to Raavan's end was now clear. As he left, Mandodari stood still. Slowly, realization dawned upon her. She understood that what had just happened was not good for Raavan, but it was right for the world. She realized the will of God Vishnu, God Brahma, and God Shiv was at work. She bowed her head in silence and accepted that the time for Raavan's end had come. Meanwhile, destiny now took full control of the battlefield. Raavan's chariot returned not quietly, but like a storm that could not be stopped. His charioteer drove forward with fierce energy. The massive vehicle surged ahead like a flying city. Golden ornaments flashed in the light, flags cracked loudly in the wind, and the weapons carried within it clanged as the earth trembled beneath its weight. From a distance, Ram watched everything with calm eyes. He saw the black horses racing forward and the blinding shine of the chariot. Then came the arrows. They fell heavily and without pause, like a mountain breaking under a powerful strike. Yet Ram did not react with fear. Instead, he observed Raavan closely. He watched his movement shift wildly from left to right, fast but without control. Turning to Matali, Ram spoke with quiet clarity. He said that Raavan's speed came not from strength but from anger, and that his unsteady movements showed a mind driven by desperation. Ram said that Raavan had already chosen his end. He then asked Matali to move forward without fear. With respect in his voice, Ram added that he was not guiding him, only reminding a master of his skill. Inspired by these words, Matali acted at once. With precise control, he turned the chariot sharply to the right. The wheels cut through the ground, and a thick cloud of dust rose into the air. It spread quickly, blinding and heavy. For a moment, Raavan's vision broke, and his rhythm was disturbed. Anger filled Raavan's eyes. They burned like fire. He roared and launched another fierce attack. Weapons flew from him without pause. But Ram stood firm. He lifted Indra's bow, and his arrows shone like rays of the sun. Each arrow moved with purpose and struck with power. Above them, the heavens had gathered. Gods, sages, and celestial beings watched in silence. This was no longer just a battle between two warriors. This was fate unfolding before the eyes of the universe. Then the universe itself began to react. Around Ravan, dark signs appeared. The sky thundered without clouds, and lightning struck from empty space. Rain fell, but it was not water. It was blood. The wind turned against him and threw dust into his eyes. Vultures circled above him, waiting. Jackals cried out with harsh voices. Even his horses trembled, tears falling from their eyes as sparks burst from their bodies. In contrast, the space around Ram filled with calm and light. A quiet strength surrounded him. The air felt pure and still. Ram saw all these signs and understood their meaning. He knew that Ravan was already defeated, and that this battle was only the final act. A deep clarity rose within him. There was no anger in his heart, only truth. The universe stood with him. With that strength, Ram moved forward again. His power rose, his focus sharpened, and he stepped into the battle, ready to bring the war to its end. The battlefield fell into a strange stillness. The Vanars stopped moving. The demons stood frozen. It was as if time itself had paused. All eyes were fixed on one side, Ram and Raavan. The final duel had begun, and no one dared to look away. Ram stood calm and steady, filled with the certainty of victory. Raavan stood burning with rage, driven by pride and the fury of a man who knew his end was near but refused to accept it. Two forces now faced each other, one guided by truth, the other by ego. Without a word, they attacked. Raavan aimed first. He tried to strike Ram's banner, but his arrows failed to hit their mark. In a swift and precise response, Ram released a single arrow that cut down Raavan's flagstaff. The great banner fell to the ground. Raavan roared in anger. In his fury, he turned his attack toward Ram's chariot and unleashed a heavy assault on the horses. His weapons struck hard, but the divine horses did not falter. They endured the blows as if touched by soft lotus stems. The battle grew more intense. The chariots moved with incredible skill. They circled each other, advanced, withdrew, and then clashed head-on. Wheels struck against wheels. Dust rose high into the sky. Suddenly, Raavan shifted his focus and aimed at Matali, Ram's charioteer. Seeing this, Ram's anger rose. He released thousands of arrows in a single surge. The sky filled with weapons. Arrows collided midair, creating a storm of sound and fire. Raavan was forced to pull back under the sheer force of Ram's attack. The violence of the battle shook the entire universe. The oceans churned. The earth trembled. Even the sun seemed to dim. In the heavens above, gods, sages, and celestial beings gathered once again. They watched with anxious hearts and prayed for Ram's victory. During this chaos, Ram saw a brief opening. Without hesitation, he released a swift and deadly arrow. It struck true. Raavan's head was cut off and fell to the ground. For a moment, silence spread across the battlefield. But then, to everyone's shock, another head appeared instantly in its place. Ram did not stop. Again, he struck. Heads fell one after another. 10, 20, 100. Each time, a new head grew back. Raavan stood alive, unbroken. Even Ram paused for a moment. The same arrows that had destroyed mighty warriors like Vali and Khar were failing now. Yet Ram did not lose his focus. He continued the battle with full strength. The fight spread across the land, rose into the sky, and echoed through the mountains. There was no rest, no pause. Day turned into night, and night into day. This fierce and endless struggle continued for 7 days and 7 nights. Far away in Ashok Vatika, Sita sat under the tree, her heart restless. The sounds of the battle were reaching her. Every moment felt heavy. Trijata came to her and began describing what was happening on the battlefield. She said, Ravan's heads are being cut again and again, but they are growing back each time. Hearing this, Sita's face turned pale. Fear filled her heart. She said, if even Ram's arrows cannot kill him, then how will this end? How will this demon, who has troubled the entire world, ever die? Her voice trembled. Tears gathered in her eyes. Sita looked down and said softly, this must be my fate. It is my fate that separated me from Ram. It is my fate that made me speak harsh words to Lakshman that day. And it is my fate that keeps me alive even in this suffering." She closed her eyes in pain. Trijata stepped closer and gently held her hand. She said, "Do not lose hope. Ravan will fall. The moment Ram's arrow strikes his heart, he will die." Sita looked at her with confusion. She asked, "Then why is Ram not striking his heart?" Trijata smiled softly. She said, "There is a deeper truth here." She continued, "Ram is not striking Ravan's heart because you reside there. And in your heart, Ram resides. And within Ram exists the entire universe." She paused and said, "If Ram strikes Ravan's heart now, it would disturb the balance of all creation." Sita listened in silence. Trijata then explained further, "But this will not last forever. As Ravan keeps losing his heads again and again, his mind will become restless. His focus will break. At that moment, your presence will no longer remain in his heart." Her voice became firm. She further said, "That is the moment Ram is waiting for." Sita took a deep breath. A small sense of hope returned. After Trijata left, the silence returned. The night felt endless. Sita looked at the sky. She said softly, "This night feels like a yuga. Even the moon feels distant. Why does time move so slowly in sorrow?" Tears rolled down her face as she thought of Ram. And far away the battle continued. The moment Trijata spoke of was drawing closer. The world watched in awe and fear. The battle had reached a point where strength alone was no longer enough. It needed something more. And at that moment, Matali stepped forward, knowing that the time had come to guide Ram toward the end. He reminded Ram of the weapon that Hanuman had brought from Lanka, the very arrow that had once been granted to Ravan by God Brahma himself. The same weapon that was meant to protect him had now come into Ram's hands. The time had come to use it. At that moment, Vibhishan stepped closer and revealed the final secret. He said, "Ravan cannot be defeated by striking his heads. They will return repeatedly. His weakness lies in his navel. That is where his life rests. That is where you must aim." His voice was firm, but the weight of his words was heavy. Ravan heard this and his fury exploded. He turned toward Vibhishan and said, "You have betrayed your own blood. You will be remembered forever as a traitor who gave away his family's secret." His voice shook the battlefield. But Ram did not allow that accusation to stand. He looked at Vibhishan and said calmly, "You will indeed be remembered. But not as a traitor. You will be remembered as one who chose dharm over blood, as one who sacrificed for the greater good." With that, Ram reached for the divine arrow that Hanuman had brought. He held it with steady hands. This was no ordinary weapon. It carried within it the force of the entire cosmos. The wind rested in its feathers. Fire and the sun burned at its tip. The weight of Mount Meru and Manda gave it gravity. Its shaft seemed formed from the very fabric of the universe. The arrow shone with a terrifying brilliance. It carried the memory of past battles and the power to end them. It was like death itself, silent and certain. The Vanars looked at it with hope, while fear spread through the ranks of the demons. Ram stood still for a moment, holding that weapon. The battlefield grew quiet, as if the world itself was waiting for what would come next. Ram closed his eyes for a moment. He invoked the sacred mantras and charged the divine weapon with full focus. His mind became still. His breath slowed. The power of the arrow grew. The air around him changed. The earth began to tremble softly. All beings, from warriors on the field to gods in the heavens, felt the weight of that moment and fell silent. Then Ram opened his eyes. With complete control, he drew his bow. There was no anger in him, only clarity. Only purpose. He released the arrow. It flew straight toward Ravan. Unstoppable. Precise. It struck his chest and drove deep into his navel. The weapon tore through his body, destroying the very source of his life. Its force passed through him and entered the earth itself. Then, as if its task was complete, it returned silently to Ram's quiver. Ravan stood frozen for a moment. His strength left him. The life within him faded. His bow slipped from his hands. The great king of Lanka, once feared across the worlds, fell from his chariot. His massive form struck the ground with a heavy sound. The battlefield fell silent once again. The gods watched closely. They had seen this before. Many times, Ravan had fallen and then risen again. This time, they were unsure. Was this truly the end? Ram stood still and looked at Ravan's fallen body. For a moment, he said nothing. Then a thought arose in his mind. He reflected that this was no ordinary enemy. Ravan had once been his devotee, a gatekeeper bound by a curse. Ram then turned to Lakshman and said that they had lived in the forests for many years and did not fully know the art of ruling a kingdom. He said that Ravan was a great scholar and that Lakshman should go to him and learn whatever he could. Lakshman was surprised, but he obeyed. He walked toward Ravan. Seeing him, Ravan spoke with effort and said, "Come closer." Lakshman stood near him. Ravan said, "Let me touch your feet." Lakshman stepped back and replied, "If you may, then you should touch my brother's feet. Not mine. I have come on Ram's command. He has sent me to learn from you." Ravan gave a faint smile and said, "Ram knows everything. Why does he wish to learn from me?" He paused and then said, "Still, if he wishes it, ask him to come to me. I do not have the strength to rise." Lakshman returned to Ram and said that Ravan wished to see him. Ram then walked toward Ravan and stood before him. Ravan looked at him deeply. His pride had faded. In a soft voice, he said, "You are the Lord of the world. Place your feet on my head. Forgive my sins. You alone are the truth. You are the only one who can still forgive me despite all the sins I have done." Ram listened quietly and then said, "You have conquered the worlds with your strength. I wish to learn from you." Ravan took a slow breath and said that he did not have much time but would share what he could. He said, "Do not become a slave to laziness." He then began to recall his past. He said that once he had passed by the land of Yama and had seen the suffering of souls in hell. He had thought of helping them, but he told himself that he would return later. He never went back. He said that if he had acted then, that suffering might have ended. He then spoke of another thought he once had. He had wondered why the ocean was salty and had imagined turning it into milk. But he kept delaying the task and never acted on it. He continued and said that he had once thought of building a path to heaven so that all could reach it. He had planned to speak to Vishwakarma but never did. That path was never made. Then he spoke of Surpanakha. He said that when she came to him, she gave him bad advice, and he chose to listen. If he had ignored her words, this day would never have come. Looking at Ram, he said, "If you wish to do something good, do it at once. Do not delay." After saying this, Ravan grew quiet. He looked at Ram one last time. His eyes had lost their anger and were filled with a strange calm. Then his breath stopped. His soul left his body. Ravan was no more. For a moment, the battlefield stood silent. Then everything changed. The demon army broke into panic. Fear took over their hearts. They turned and fled toward Lanka, tears in their eyes, unable to face what had just happened. The Vanars charged forward, their voices filled with victory as they pursued the fleeing demons. Above, the heavens came alive. Divine drums began to sound. Sweet and gentle winds blew across the battlefield, carrying a fragrance that calmed the air. Flowers rained down from the sky upon Ram's chariot, as the gods rejoiced. The darkness that had covered the world lifted. The sun shone steady once again. The earth grew calm. A deep peace returned to the universe. And in the center of it all stood Ram, victorious, with Lakshman, Vibhishan, Hanuman, and the Vanar army by his side. The great terror of the worlds had fallen. The war had finally come to its end. On the battlefield, the Vanars rushed forward. They wanted to see the great Ravan from close. The mighty king who had shaken the three worlds now lay still upon the ground. His great form rested in the dust, silent and unmoving. Sugriv and Vibhishan came forward. Ram too stood near, looking at Raavan. There was no pride in his eyes, only a quiet sadness. He saw not just an enemy, but a great warrior who had fallen. Vibhishan could not hold himself. He went near Raavan's body and embraced it. Tears filled his eyes. His voice trembled as he spoke, "Your pride has been the cause of your fall. You did not recognize who Ram truly is. You brought Sita to Lanka by force. I asked you many times to return her, but you did not listen. Now you are gone and the world will curse me." He wept openly. The pain of a brother losing his own blood was deep. Then he turned to Ram and said, "Ram, please help me." Raavan worshipped God Shiv all his life. Yet, when he was dying, God Shiv did not even look toward him. Ram stepped closer. His voice was calm and filled with compassion. He said, "Do not grieve, Vibhishan. Raavan is at peace now. A warrior who falls in battle by my arrow does not suffer. He has reached a higher place. God Shiv blessed to him to take him to the next phase of life. God Shiv takes care of everyone." Ram paused and then said gently, "Do not see him as fallen. See him as freed." Mandodari came running, her heart shattered. She saw Raavan lying still upon the ground, the mighty king now silent and unmoving. She fell beside him and lifted his head into her lap. Tears flowed without control as she cried, "Please get up, my lord. Lanka is empty without you. You who slept on royal beds now lie in the dust. What is left for me now? I have nothing to live for." Her grief deepened as she spoke again, "All this happened because you brought Sita to Lanka. You should not have listened to your sister, Surpanakha." Her voice carried both sorrow and regret. Vibhishan stepped forward and tried to console her. He said gently, "Control yourself, Queen Mandodari. I asked Raavan repeatedly to return Sita, but he did not listen." But Mandodari was beyond comfort. Her pain was too great. Holding Raavan's head close, she said, "I want to see the one who killed my lord." She slowly stood up. Her clothes were disordered, her hair loose and untied. With heavy steps, she walked toward Ram. When she reached him, she bowed down at his feet. Ram noticed the presence of a woman. Realizing it was not Sita, he lowered his eyes in respect. Yet, he raised his hand and blessed her. Mandodari looked up and said, "Why do you bless me like this? I am the daughter of Maya. I am Mandodari, wife of Raavan, the king who defeated the gods. I am the mother of Indrajit, who captured Indra. And you bless me with a long life when my husband is no more? You are Narayan. How can you bless me in this way?" Ram spoke softly, "Do not grieve. Raavan is at peace now. Killed by my arrow, he has reached heaven. You will live long, and you will live in the hearts of people." Mandodari listened and then said, "People always said you are God Vishnu. Now I understand why. On one side was Raavan, my husband. He had everything, yet he kept reaching out for other women, even Sita. On the other side, you stand here. You have won the war, yet you do not even look at me. Sita is truly blessed to have a husband like you. And I am blessed that I have seen you. Raavan too is blessed, for he was killed by your hands." A silence followed. Then Ram turned to Vibhishan and said, "Arrange for the last rites of Raavan." Vibhishan nodded. Raavan's body was taken with care. It was bathed in water and anointed with sandal paste. He was dressed in fine garments, as befitting a great king. A funeral pyre was prepared on the shore of the ocean, and Raavan's body was placed upon it. Vibhishan stood there, tears in his eyes. With a heavy heart, he lit the pyre. Flames rose into the sky, marking the end of Raavan and the close of a great and powerful life. In this episode, we saw the war reach its true end, not just in battle, but in meaning. We witnessed Ram's devotion touch its highest point, as he stood ready to offer his own eye, and saw Goddess Durga appear, pleased with his surrender. She revealed the deeper truth behind Ravan's life, that he was not just an enemy, but a soul bound by destiny, waiting to be freed. We saw how even the divine moves through action, as Hanuman created the moment for the goddess to leave Ravan, shifting the balance of the war. Ram and Raavan clashed with unstoppable force. Weapons filled the sky, heads fell and rose again, and even the gods watched in suspense. We saw that strength alone could not end Ravan. It required truth, knowledge, and the right moment. Guided by Vibhishan and aided by the divine weapon brought by Hanuman, Ram struck Ravan at the source of his life. The great king fell, and with him, the fear that had held the worlds in darkness came to an end. But victory did not come with pride. We saw Ram's compassion, as he honored even his fallen enemy. He sent Lakshman to learn from Ravan, and we heard Ravan's final words, filled with regret and wisdom, reminding us that delay, pride, and wrong choices can destroy even the greatest. We then witnessed the grief of Lanka. Mandodari mourned her husband with a broken heart. Vibhishan stood torn between dharm and blood. And in a powerful moment, Mandodari came before Ram and recognized the truth, seeing not just a warrior, but divinity itself. Finally, we saw Ravan's last rites. A king who once ruled the three worlds was honored with dignity. His body was prepared with care, and Vibhishan, with tears in his eyes, performed the final rites. The flames rose, marking not just the end of a life, but the closing of an era. In the next episode, we will see what follows the fall of Ravan. We will witness the reunion of Ram and Sita, a moment filled with emotion, questions, and dharm. We will also see how Ram restores order in Lanka and prepares for the journey back to Ayodhya. Join me in the next episode, as next phase of Lanka starts. Share this podcast with your loved ones and let the timeless lessons of the Ramayana inspire your journey. Though the details of this ancient tale may vary across traditions, its essence reminds us of the enduring power of compassion, courage, and hope in the face of adversity. Until next time, may the light of dharm illuminate your path and fill your heart with peace.